we did inherit the best of two ways, I guess. The ways that the English people had of doing things and how they could persist and survive. And of course, the Inuit people knew how to live off the land. One time, Aunt Flo Becky, you've known of her. She's a granddaughter of Lydia. She tells us that one time we could have saved more of the old stories and yarns, but we people sort of looked at that old lady and thought it was ramblings of an old senile lady. Lydia, old Gran Campbell, she said, in her old age was telling stories, and they were not listening as intently as younger people listen now. Like people my age and younger now are trying to retain the stories of the past. I can relive and get lost into the times that went by, how people fished on these rivers and shores, how you could look from here to the Mealy Mountains. To this day, I can't think of a better place in the world to live.
Times have changed since the days of Aunt Lydia. Yet the country around Mulligan is the same as it was when Aunt Lydia called it home. It remains a source of inspiration and strength. Jean Crane and others keep going back to the wilderness, not because they have to, but because they want to. And when they do, they say they always feel the presence of Aunt Lydia, who lived here so long ago.
Cashmere bathroom tissue is inspired by the luxurious fabric that has defined softness for centuries. And as every woman knows, nothing feels like cashmere.
Running your small business just got a little easier. With our complete business banking package for $12 a month, you're richer than you think. Scotiabank.
Oh, hi there. Right now at Fido, triple the Canada-wide minutes, double the data, and so much more. For only $39 a month. Amazing, right? And that includes the Fido Advantage.
Oh, I'm craving a double latte.
Them days, stories from the past, memories of a time and a people. Homey thoughts about family life years ago, about making snow houses and skin boots and grass mats, about trapping and living in the country. The past returns to those old enough to remember, and for others, a fascinating glimpse at the way things were in them days. And so in homes all over Labrador, this little magazine is read and cherished. Doris Saunders, the editor of them days, lives in Happy Valley now, but she was born and raised here on this little island called Dumplin. Just a dot on the map, a speck at the mouth of Sandwich Bay, a rocky place covered with blackberry bushes and scrub spruce. But to Doris, a special place, a place filled with memories. She comes back when she can to see the old places, to think of the people she knew. She had a taste of the old way of life, enough to realize that something special is lost when the old people die, for only they know what life was really like here in Labrador.
And she had 4 children, and she died at 80. 2 were boys. Grandfather knocked down British.
It's been a long while indeed since ships and men came to Labrador from England. Today's generation would scarcely know if it weren't for stories like these, remembered and passed down. Memories of the olden times, the first settlers, who they were and what they did, even the words they spoke, kept alive, cherished through 5 or 6 generations, and now, through them days, preserved forever. And so the spark, fanned by this simple lady, who lived in another century and another era, has been kept alive down through the generations. Aunt Lydia's children and her children's children have inherited a love of the land and a commitment to Labrador and its people. The stories, the happenings, the way of life of the earlier generation must not be forgotten. And it won't be if Doris Saunders has her way.
I think it was Aunt Lizzie Gowdy gave me the first copy of Granny's book, and I sat down to read it. Just felt goose pimples all over and chills going up and down my spine. It was touching. You know, you can't put it into words because there's no words to describe how you feel about something like that.
Was it a bit of an inspiration to you too in the work you've been doing now?
Yes, I guess it explained why I'm as interested in the old stories of Labrador. I think I was probably destined to carry on what she started. It was record the history of Labrador. Her memories go back to when her mother was still alive, and I think her mother died when she was about 7 years old. And her memory goes back before then, so that's a long way back. Because Lydia was born in 1818. And she's talking about anywhere from 1824 and up.
So she had both traditions. She was part Inuit, part white. So she had both traditions in there.
And they would have lived the lifestyle of the Inuit people. But she was taught to be white by her father, who was English.
No, she was a literate person in a time when there weren't very many people who could read or write, either here or in Newfoundland.
Yes, Ambrose Brooks thought it was very important that his children learn to read and write. And he had a Church of England prayer book, and he taught his children how to read. And from what I can gather, Lydia learned to write on her own, from reading letters and from books. And then she encouraged her children. And they've been self-taught all the way up through, even as late as my father's day. He had 2 months of school, but he could read anything he put his hands on.
What do you feel now when you go out to the places where she used to live and work and write about?
Well, the first time I went to Mulliach, it was almost like I'd come home. You had a feeling like you were somewhere that was familiar. I don't know if it's because it's some part of Labrador or because all of Labrador is familiar. But there was just an extra special feeling there. I'd love to see where her grave is. That would be something that would bring tears to your eyes and a lump to your throat.
So you feel a great attachment to her.
Oh yes. Yeah. And I think that my dad was just an extension of her. Because reading her book and knowing him as a person, they were very much alike in the way they thought and the way they described things.
So really, in a way, in more ways than one, her tradition is kept alive in them days right now.
Yes. Oh yes, very much so.
And the memories of a people are kept alive and cherished. The stories of old Labrador will not die. Future generations will know what life was like in the early days, how their ancestors lived. Doris and Jean and many other Labradorians remain committed to preserving this heritage. But really, they're just continuing the work begun so long ago by a woman they still affectionately call Aunt Lydia.
Next, on Land and Sea. Since she was born, Linda Empey has been battling a constant twitch in her head and hands, but it's a battle she almost always wins. Linda's Life. That's next on Land and Sea.